everybody. It is the first Friday of the month of 2025. This is fantastic. Thank you guys for joining, ladies and gentlemen. Joining you. This is going to be fantastic. Y'all are going to love this call. I wish that everybody could have joined us 30 minutes ago because I feel like we should have recorded the whole thing. Hopefully we did, and we get that on some shorts. As you're joining in here, please if you don't mind, put in here where you're from. We'd love to keep up with that. And also, too, please add your email because today our guest, Stephen Sutton, has a resource that he's created to provide to everyone after the call, and we'll possibly have it posted on the YouTube channel as well. But we definitely want to make sure we email it to you. So go ahead, if you don't mind, stick your email in the chat where you're from. We'd love to do that. Again, thank you guys for joining. We have a really special guest. I'm super excited to say that this January 2025 is our 10th call that we started. We're coming up on April would be our 1-year anniversary. Today is our 10th. Don't forget that our podcast that's hosted by Eric Kloss is also hosted on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. These calls here that we do on First Friday are all posted on the YouTube. Search Tennessee EMS Educators. And as we say here, the reason why we do this is because everyone needs to be have the ability to be led better, but the most important person you'll ever lead is yourself. And we're going to talk about this morning. I mean, there's ever a message that's going to be talked about today about leading yourself better, it is definitely this one. Stephen Sutton is our guest today. Many people know him across Tennessee in other states as well. Stephen's a paramedic. He's a minister. He's a previous director at the Crockett County EMS. He's a former state EMS board member, and believe he's probably the youngest board member ever appointed to the board, which is pretty special. His topic today is one of my favorite things to talk about because I think it's very important. It's called Leadership Reflections. Stephen, man, Leadership Reflections. We've gone through a whole bunch of stuff already this morning. We're looking forward to hearing about that. One of my favorite quotes. Everybody knows I'm a Maxwell fan. One of my favorite quotes is by Maxwell, and it just simply says, "Learning to pause allows growth to catch up with you." Brother, we live in a busy world, and we just have to pause. If we don't pause, and I'll just tell this, and I'm going to be quiet and let you get started. I learned that the hard way. Maybe we all learn lessons the hard way, but there come a time in my life, in my leadership career, where I had no choice but to pause. It just happened that way. And brother, I learned so much. It's why I love the story of Moses in the wilderness. So go ahead there, Stephen. Get started here.
I appreciate you having me on. I appreciate the work that goes into making this podcast happen. These things don't just fall out of the sky. So appreciate the team and you, Phil, putting it together. My wife and kids are my why. We're enjoying parenting a set of twins who will be 7 this year. So being in your 40s is a little weird, Phil. Some of my friends are grandparents and some of my friends, are raising newborns. But raising these kids is just the greatest joy of my life. And as you mentioned, I'm a minister, a paramedic. I've often said that a preacher has as much business in EMS as a clown does in a funeral home, but both professions are about washing feet. And it's been the highlight of my life, really, to be trained by the best, to work with the best EMS providers. And I'm glad that you all have chosen to be with us this morning as we kind of dig into this a little bit deeper.
Yeah, well, definitely. We look forward to it. So, Stephen, tell us about Leadership Reflections from your perspective and other lessons you've learned too.
Well, you mentioned about the quote about John Maxwell, the pause. And, if we don't take time to pause as leaders, then life and our profession sometimes hit the pause button for us. And so what we're talking about today isn't just about being a better leader, but being a better person. Sometimes we have this idea that, if there's areas where we need to be better, then there's something wrong with us or there's damaged goods. But that's not always the case. You don't have to be sick to get better. It's January the 3rd, and the month of January is named after the Roman god Janus, who was depicted as a man with 2 faces. One looked into the year that had just passed, and that face bore sorrow and dismay and perplexity. And the other the other face was looking forward with hope and confidence. And so at this time of the year, it's easy to find ourselves reflecting upon what's past. The TV, the radio, the internet, they've got the countdowns, the best and the worst of the year. And, many will go through an evaluation process at work, looking back on, what type of job they've done over the past year, how productive they were, how efficient was our team. And if we go through that evaluation process at work and we know the value that that brings, then it would be great for us to spend some time doing that as leaders personally and professionally. If I can't manage myself, then really I'm not able to manage anything or anyone else.
Yeah, well, and something I talk about in our leadership classes that we do is that this time of year is the perfect time to do that. You're at the end of the year, getting ready for a new year. Everyone should take time, but definitely it's a priority that people should set aside every day. That would be the goal. But if not every day, at least once a week, you got to do it as leaders. So Stephen, am I hearing you right? So should we earn the right uh, to lead others when you lead yourself well? Is that what you're saying?
I think that is absolutely what we're saying. And so, as a preacher, so to speak, I say that we earn the right to speak on Sunday based off what you do Monday through Saturday. And as a leader, if you're going to lead other people well, then you earn the right to do that when you have led yourself well and when you are a good follower. So much of what we're discussing today as leaders, I remember from my EMS instructors, and Phil may not want me to tell this morning, but Bobby Doran, Joyce Knowles, Jeff Davis, Beth Roberts, Gina, Tom, and Phil Sanderson, the great Phil. I don't know if y'all know Phil or not. He's kind of a big deal, was one of my instructors, and so I had I was surrounded as a young EMS student by some of the best people in our region. And so as instructors, you all were teaching us two lessons. One lesson was on PowerPoint about medicine and the physiological man, the pumps, the tubes, the valves, the sociological man, where he is, what he does, the psychological man that drives the first two, the spiritual man, the fourth part, that if you don't treat that part, then you failed in the first three. So that was one of the lessons. But the second lesson you was teaching us is how to live our lives. And we were watching and we were taking all that in. And I'm thankful to have, those professional mentors. Nobody's made more leadership mistakes, especially earlier in my career, than me. You mentioned, EMS board and the youngest board member. Well, when you hear those two things put together, then Stephen Sutton made a lot of mistakes. If he's the young, there's a reason why, generally speaking, they're older people, more wiser, has been around the block on the board. And so part of that is because I didn't do what we're talking about this morning. Leadership is how other people experience me. How do we leave people feeling after an encounter? And it takes that front end evaluation and planning for people to have a good experience. And Phil, if we don't do that front end evaluation of ourselves, and we're going to be doing that back end thinking every single time. We're going to be wondering, why did they not want to work on my team? Why did they quit? Why did they leave? Why did they not want to be around me? Why do they not see me as a mentor? It's because they don't appreciate the experience that they have after they have been with you. And so often, we want to take inventory of everyone else except ourselves. We want to say, well, Phil's this way or that way, or, Phil left because he wanted more money, or Phil left, because of, he was never happy here. He's not from here. But those questions add no value. We got to ask the right questions. And the right questions are, why didn't Phil want to be on my team? And why didn't Phil feel like he could be successful here? And why didn't Phil appreciate my leadership? What is it that I need to change? Those are the right questions. And the questions that we're talking about this morning in terms of self-reflection, self-awareness, forming questions like, how did I influence other people? I can't control what other people do, but I can control me. I'm in full control of Stephen Sutton. What about my spouse? Did I prioritize that relationship this year? That's a question that adds value. Many of our successes as leaders is dependent upon our families and their support. So prioritizing those relationships are super important. My kids, how did I nurture them? How did I support their emotional and spiritual growth? The Emotionally Healthy Leader is a great book if you don't have it. But if I'm not emotionally healthy myself, I have no business pouring into other people. You can't pour from E. And you know that, we know that. Many of us have learned that the hard way. Friendships. What friendships do I want to intentionally cultivate this next year? Who are my top 5 friends? And when I look at those top 5 influences in my life on a scale from 1 to 5, 5 being very good, how good are those people for me? Or are they negatively influencing, my life? What did God want me to learn last year? What lessons or gratitude did I develop? what are the top 5 heartbreaking and the top 5 moments of joy for 2024? Just taking some time. Sometimes I ask people, how do you feel? They say, well, Stephen, I feel overwhelmed. That's the feeling you get when you haven't sat down with yourself in a while to really explore, how am I feeling? What is going on? And so, those that self-reflecting, asking those questions, what are the top 5 heartbreaking, the top 5 moments of joy? What about my health? For a long time, I neglected my health as a leader, all that caught up to you. You're talking about life hitting the pause button. What happened? Bad labs, doctor. He's like, well, you need to go to the cancer center. I'm like, cancer center? What? So I go see the hematologist, oncologist. He's like, you got to change some things. You're going to be one of my patients. You'll be one of the youngest ones here. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. So life changes. And so we realize through that self-care is not me first. Self-care is me too. And we've got to learn that as leaders. So I had to make some more room for, better choices for my physical health. If we're going to last the distance as leaders, as fathers, husbands, and ensure that our influence is as powerful as it can be, then we've got to last the difference. Of course, it's weird these days getting healthy, with the current fads. Everybody says, are you on that shot? Well, no, I'm not on the shot. I'm just trying to discipline myself a little bit better when it comes to making better decisions. And so if I can't control that area of my life, or if I can't discipline myself in those areas, then I may lose my influence, as a leader. So what habits made me better? That's another question that I think adds value. About 4 years ago, I started the habit of rising early at 5 a.m. That's pretty special. Now, I never thought that I'd be that guy. But when Crockett asked me to help with the ambulance service, I wanted to be at the station at shift change. I wanted to see the off-going, the oncoming, check in with them, see how their night went, make sure the oncoming crew felt supported and had everything they needed to be successful for their shift. But you know what? That was great for me. I thought that I was getting up at 5 a.m. for them, Phil. But what happened is, it actually, I was one of the benefit. I benefited from that.
Well, Stephen, you hit some very powerful points there, and definitely want to continue to uncover those. And one of the things you talked about your spouse, Eric Kloss, who's on the call here and also co-host and does podcast. He talks about how he does an evaluation with his spouse. Now, I'm going to tell a secret. My spouse is on this call too. I'm scared to do that. But yes, that is truthful. I mean, I always tell people, if you want to really know the truth, just ask and get somebody who will tell you that. And the truth may hurt, but the truth is definitely a good evaluation for you to be better. Friends, if your friends aren't in the same mindset and mentality of you, get some new friends. You can't be a great leader and have bad friends, and have bad friends that have bad influences or pulling you the opposite direction. And I'm with you on this health thing. I could have a whole couple hours on that. I mean, about going on 4 years now, I really got into a health fitness mindset, and that's definitely as leaders. And then we're getting into this 5 a.m. thing now, Stephen, I haven't accomplished that yet, but I got to tell you, it's on my bucket list to do. But I will tell you that if you read all the success stories of powerful leaders, all of them have these things in common. Everything you've hit on, family first, good health, and rise early. So, Stephen, what are the benefits for getting up at 5 a.m.? Because, brother, I've been trying to do this for a long time, and I want to be that guy too. So, tell us.
Well, if you're a leader, you're always around people. So let me bait you a little bit. Nobody else is up at 5 o'clock. So that's a great thing. There's no other people up. But it's one of the best decisions I've made as a leader. It's quiet, and I need to spend time with myself. If I'm so busy that I don't have time to think, then I need to slow down a little bit. If I'm thinking too much, I need to do more. And if I'm doing too much, then I need to spend a little bit more time thinking more. So there's balance in there so that I don't get too carried away with one or the other. Sometimes people say, I'm just trying to stay busy, just trying to stay busy. Well, okay, but we really need to sit with it sometimes. We need to sit with our feelings and our emotions. We need to sit with our pain. We need to sit with our discomfort, and we need to feel it, and we need to explore it and figure out what's going on, not just physically, but spiritually. So we're talking about forming questions. What deposits and withdrawals were made in my life spiritually? Mentally, did I take care of my mind? You only get one. Can't go to Walmart and get another one. And in some of my responsibilities here, I'm the chief death investigator for the Crockett and Dyer County Medical Examiner's Office. We have a team of investigators in Crockett, but I'm the only death investigator in Dyer County. And we see some really tragic things. We had a young lady right before Christmas. I mean, a day or two before Christmas passed away, 15 years old. We had a 20 something year old right after Christmas, just got married, wife's expecting. I've got to prioritize that. I've got to take care of myself, my mental health. I can't go to Walmart and get another one. So how did I challenge my mind? How do I pause? How do I take care of myself so that I can last the distance? What classes or courses did I take? I've been doing public information officer work for years, but last year and the year before that, I challenged myself. I want to read every book from the leading PIOs in the nation, to develop relationships with PIOs that I respect across the nation, to read more releases, to listen to more press conferences, to develop a resource that will address every single emergency that could ever happen in a community. At last count, I'm up to like 160. But I wanted to grow, and I wanted to read, and I wanted to create, and I wanted to challenge myself in a new area, because I knew that serving as a PIO had added tons of value for the sheriff's department at home. Serving as a PIO, quasi PIO for the ambulance service, now they're official PIO, but as the director, I knew that we had a message that we had to take to our community about the work that our people were doing, and people didn't know, and it wasn't their fault. It was our fault for not telling them. And so I think also forming questions related to my emotions. How do I handle my emotions well? Emotional intelligence is a big buzzword, has been for a couple of years. The emotionally intelligent leader, sad, mad, glad, happy, all of those are your emotions. They belong to you. What's triggering those emotions? Super important stuff that we're talking about this morning.
Yeah, well, one thing is for certain. If you are in the first responder circle, if you're EMS, fire, police, wherever you are in EMS, you're going to deal with bad stuff. And having a good time of reflection to unload that is so important as we're experiencing so much mental health, outcomes right now, and thankfully it's being addressed across the, here in Tennessee and other states as well. We don't always, Steve, we don't always do a good job exploring our emotions and feelings, especially as men.
No,
That's
we
just
don't.
something we don't do. Yeah.
No, we
Um,
don't. Almost every week, Phil, I'm sitting down with someone that's in darkness, reaching out into what they hope is the light. And Joyce's podcast is phenomenal, where she's talking about listening. As a leader, that's the only way that we address the pain of those who are sitting in front of us, is by listening. People have to be heard, and it's a difficult time. I don't know that I've seen as many of our public safety colleagues in general struggling with this, especially as type A's. We're type A's as leaders, but if we're going to achieve our full potential, that's an important area for us to explore. So forming questions are about building and growing ourselves and others. But the other type of question, they'll have this on the resource if we can provide it to them, will be deforming questions. What decisions did I make that compromised my integrity?
mm,
The leader integrity is everything. I do not, um, it's no secret. I do not have as mentors people that are close to me, people that do not have integrity. It is a deal breaker. I have to have people around me that tell the truth, that have integrity. They are the kind of people that I want to be like. What habits or distractions kept me from my potential? Where do I need to ask for forgiveness? Forgiveness and grace is powerful in the workplace. We're talking about grace leadership, empathetic leadership this morning. You know what? I fail. I've got to ask our employees, I got to ask my staff, hey, listen, I dropped the ball on that. I'm incredibly sorry. This is what I'm planning on doing to address this so that this doesn't happen again. What are the greatest challenges in my relationships at work, friends, community? You mentioned a minute ago about our spouse. We have a men's ministry at church, and I was talking to the whole congregation. I said, some men may think, well, I don't need that. I said, well, if you don't know whether or not you need it, ask your spouse. She'll let you know whether or not you might benefit from an hour of men's ministry. What do I need to do differently in 2025? What are my regrets? What are my disappointments? What's my greatest opportunity? And that's just another way of saying, you know, what is my weakness? And so instead of saying, what am I really bad at? You know, Sometimes I will say, what is my greatest opportunity? And I've sat down with my employees. I've sent anonymous surveys, not only to the whole community feel,
mm.
but I've sent surveys to my employees, annual surveys evaluating me. And I've sat down with them face to face every year and asked them numerous questions. What are your goals? Where are you trying to be? what classes are you trying to take? Where are you trying to go in your career? But I've also asked, what is my greatest opportunity? If you could tell me one thing that I do that drives you nuts, tell me what it is. Because I don't want you to come to work every day feeling that way.
Yeah, well, Stephen, as I told you when we were preparing for this call, it goes by fast. It's already 20 after. So, folks, if you'll start putting your questions in the chat, we'll definitely try to get as many of those answered. But while we're doing that, Stephen, reflection, it's absolutely essential. If you're a leader, I can't tell you, you have to do it. You got to make time to do it. You cannot be too busy not to do it. What are some ways that practical ways that Stephen that you could share with us that maybe have worked best for you?
I think you need to be open to criticism. Listen to your spouse, your family, your friends, ask your employees, your coworkers. I want to be better, and give me your best suggestion. Who did I show up for? Who showed up for me? I remember my twins were born at Jackson General. JR sent me a text and said that he and Jeff Davis were going to come up there and help me change diapers. And I told JR would come on, but I didn't know how much help Jeff Davis was going to be. Love and respect both of them. I'm not on their level as leaders, never will be, but I look up to and respect them greatly. And just showing up for me in my moment of joy meant the world to me. And I would tell you this, in moments of tragedy and crisis, you as a leader, you cannot call or text. Leaders show up. And so, what would I do differently? Where would I take risk? How can I be grateful? And, I think in terms of reflexive questioning, just take a piece of paper, or I have a Word document because I print it out at times throughout the year. But on one side, it says things I can control. The other side, it says things I cannot control. Put it all on that paper in order of priority. It may take a couple of days. That's fine. And when you're done, take that piece of paper, tear it right down the middle. And the side that says things I cannot control, just wad that up and throw it away. There's nothing you can do about that. And the part that says things I can control, well, those are your controllable action items for 2025.
Mm, man, that's powerful. I love that. That is a powerful example. I definitely want to try that. So we got a question coming in here. It says, what is the worst advice you have received growing as a leader?
Well, I think that all criticism as a leader, all criticism needs to be heard. All advice needs to be heard. And then you take that in and you decide for yourself, whether or not, that's something that you need to heed, or maybe it goes against your values. I have most of the time, for me, someone has said that I could either do this or this. And so they put you in like a false dilemma. Like you got to decide either you're going to do this or this. And I don't think that it's an either or situation. I believe it's a both and. I think that as long as it's not illegal, and as long as it doesn't violate the laws of physics, then we can do it. I mean, we flew the moon over 50 years ago. There's nothing that we cannot do. And so when someone tries to limit that and say, well, you got to decide, we're either going to do this, or like, Stephen, you're either going to be a preacher or a song leader, or you're going to be a preacher or a paramedic. You can't do both. I think we can do both. And I think that we don't have to limit ourselves or other people by giving that false dilemma where they have to choose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Definitely got time for a couple more questions. One of the things that I wanted to hit on, because I think it's so important, especially in this field. As you said, we're all type A's, and type A's. I mean, I'm a type A. We're all type A's in this business, and we just want to do everything. We want to run, 25 hours a day, and there's only 24, and we can't even do that well. So, what strategies have you found to be most effective in balancing, work-life balance, professional relationships, and professional responsibilities? You talked about on this before we got on this call here is not having to answer the call all the time. That's a failure as a leader if you don't have someone who can do that. So touch on that for a moment.
Sure. Phil, I think that as a leader, I have the team that I deserve. And so if I'm a micromanager, then I deserve to have to work 70 hours a day and field 1,000 phone calls. That's your payment. That's your reward for not trusting your team. That's your reward for not, delegating responsibility and having a shared governance model of leadership. And so my advice is to be fully present where you are. If there's somebody sitting in front of you, then you need to be talking to them, not texting, not on your phone. Joyce hit on that a little bit too. So these are common themes that you're going to hear from from leaders. I also think that, if I'm with my kids, I, I mean, sometimes we're in a small town. So, at 3 o'clock the other morning, somebody called me. I didn't answer it. And the next day, they actually called twice. They called a friend of mine 12 times. And I called and said, hey, what was going on? And they said, oh, well, so and so had a nosebleed. I'm not taking a 3 o'clock phone call, for a nosebleed, somebody that I don't even. So sometimes those things happen. But we have a team set up. We have a number. It's 911. We actually have a special number for that. And so I can't take all those calls and I can't be everywhere all the time, but I've got to be fully present where I am. So that's how I would answer that question.
Yeah, well, that's super important. Definitely coming close to the end of the call here. We want to field some more questions. If you have those, be sure and put those in the chat here. Stephen, you highlighted the importance of taking inventory of our decisions, our habits. In our leadership class, Eric, one of his parts in the class, he talks about habits. He has a really good section there if you hadn't taken our class there. But one of the things, the message in our class that we talk about is habits can consume you, good, bad. It will definitely consume you. And integrity is super important, and that's all we have is our integrity. And unfortunately, sometimes perception is how may not really be who we really are. But when we have those moments when we're not on our best behavior, and someone sees that, that's their perception right there. But can you share a lesson that you've learned from past mistakes and how it shaped your leadership journey?
I'm going to tell you nobody's made more mistakes than me. And I could talk about them all day long. And I just, you gotta be able to forgive that and go on. But I learned that from mentors. There were people feel that, I haven't always treated everybody correctly on this journey of life. But when people forgave me, that was powerful. And and when we forgive people, it's, hey, Phil, I'm going to forgive you and I'm going to treat you like this never happened. And so that forgiveness was a powerful example in my life that said, you know what? They didn't treat me the way that I treated other people. They treated me better and they showed me a better way. And that has influenced the way that I treat other people. Definitely not perfect. Don't have that mastered at all. But I could have been isolated, excluded. I could have been hated, and that would have made it worse for me. That would not have brought me to a better way of living. And so I'm grateful for those leaders that saw those mistakes and said, you know what, this is not insurmountable. This isn't unget-overable. We can make this happen. So I appreciated their forgiveness in that mistake. That's what added value.
Oh, that's great. That's good. Someone else's kindness and forgiveness, it goes a long ways. Turn the other cheek. It's one of the golden rules, right?
That's
You
it.
never know. Gosh, there is our two.
Flew by. Unbelievable.
There's our 2 minute. We ain't even got started.
I know my
So
sermons
much.
don't go by this fast.
Oh, thank everybody for joining. So, kind of as a comment that's in our chat, I want to read here. It says, "Thank you for reminding in value your family and remaining in value of your family and inner circle. We are so limited without their support," and that's 100% positive. I wanted to kind of give everybody some a couple of things to take away from them as well. As you're reflecting in your moments from 24 getting into 25, think to yourself, am I aligning my actions with the vision and values of your organization, of your life, whatever it is? Are they aligning? If they're not, then that's a distractor. I call those big pink elephants, and you don't need those in your life. Another thing to think about is, how effectively am I supporting and empowering my team or my family? A third thing to think about is, what lessons have I learned from recent challenges and success? You talked about that, Stephen. And the fourth thing, am I effectively prioritizing and managing my time? That's everything in the world. How much is your time worth? And then the last thing is, am I fostering a culture of trust and collaboration? You got to be trustworthy, and you got to have friends to talk to and collaborate and join forces together. Thank you for everybody for joining. Be sure and come back next month. We have David Blevins, who is no stranger to the state. He's currently serving on the EMS board. He's also a paramedic director at Roane State Community College there in East Tennessee. February the 7th will be the first Friday of February. We'll have David Blevins on. And remember, the most important person you ever lead yourself, and that's a hard person to lead. Thank you, everybody. Y'all have a wonderful day and a wonderful weekend. And thank you for joining. Look forward to coming back next month.